Welcome to the great series talk. This month we have the honor to have Ms. Lipi, who is an operation leader at Amazon Web Service, leading the cut down premium team. Her team delivers a specialized engineering support for most critical cloud initiative. She oversees a strategic initiative and drives innovation across various AWS domain. With a strong passion for people development, she is dedicated to mentoring her engineers and guiding them in their professional growth. Beyond team leadership, she focuses on identifying and implementing a strategic improvement that enhance organizational efficiency and impact. She also actively collaborates with university to help bridge the gap between academia and industry, preparing students for real-world technology challenges. Thank you so much.
Quick check. Can the people in the back hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to good without the mic, correct? All right. Loud enough. All right, that's good. Let's get started. I know it's late in the evening, especially the fall evening, so I appreciate you all being here. The pizza smells definitely helps. So thank you for being here. Just a quick introduction. Thank you, Professor, for giving it already, but I think the introduction has been complete without saying that I graduated from UP Dallas in 2015, which made me feel old now. I was a graduate student here, graduated with software engineering. I'm right now in operations in the US. I need a team called AWS. I'm not sure if anybody has this. A lot of people just basically operate from where a customer has a really critical production of their migrations, modern migrations, their AI modern migrations, critical events, then we continuously because they're end-to-end damage in the outputs. So that is what I'm currently working on right before this role. I was an operations leader for specifically for machine learning and AI services. So that was my role. Within Amazon, just a couple of, and this is, I'm going to use this word a lot during my presentation. Anything that you see is not a regular, but there is specific reason behind sharing that, because it is a building block in my journey and why I did certain things the way I did. Right? And so I am currently Amazon bar raiser for anybody that is not aware of or that is a specific group between Amazon and AWS are apprenticeship interviewers who participate in raising the bar at Amazon's hiring process. So that is something that I currently, and it is some sort of volunteering, which is apart from my regular day-to-day activity. I am also another volunteering thing is Amazon Culture Change, where I help with, fostering the AWS Amazon culture within the company. Again, another volunteering thing that I do. And then just some sort of technical accreditation, my life as an engineer when I was trying to myself in Amazon Open Search, which is basically an analytics service. Search and service. Introduction is again in conflict with us saying that I so that is my most of the past work, which is where I'm focused on. That's a little bit about me. So I think as Professor said, I'm just share my journey and why I did certain things the way I did it. Apart from that, the main thing for you guys is key takeaways lessons learned from that story that I ask now. What are the things I would do? That's what I want to share. So I'll start with my, days as, student in university, right? I think there were a lot of, not key takeaways, a lot of lessons, a lot of things that I look back, I was a very academic focused person at this time. With a really hard effort, very good grades, making sure I have the right skill set, and did whatever it took to make sure that happens, right? However, um, you know, one thing that if I look back that I would do differently as a student as what you guys are doing right now, which is getting to learn from others and proactively networking with others. Now, we hear this word a lot as a student, the networking, right? When we first hear that, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the networking to get a job or build that connection. Someday somebody will refer me to that job, right? Which is the thing, but I thought it was the networking, that's what it meant, right? Now if I look back at it, I think regardless of what the outcome of that connection is, focusing on that connection and really making sure that you are in it is what this understanding that was something that I did not do and I will do. Right?
What did you say I need to understand?
Understanding the difference between making the networking or doing the networking just because there's something there for you versus doing the networking because you want to grow and you want to learn from the other person. Like you guys are showing up today, you're not, like I'm not here to hire or offer any different job today, but you still showed up. Because you wanted to learn something. Right? And that was a big first step that we've already taken towards that goal. So that is something that I would recommend. Like I said before, I was very academic focused. I was a builder, I was a CS officer back then. So I was very focused on what it took for me to get this student. But that networking piece is something that I would find a balance. Again, we're not saying just go out your ways because all the time. But going into hackathons, going into some sort of connections that are necessary, going into some sort of networking fairs just because that is a huge good, right? And that is what eventually during my days at Amazon, that is the works. So that is my journey in UTD and what I love. All right, so just while I was a graduate student in UTD and right after my graduation as well, I was a software developer intern for a
Ms. Patel, am I allowed to take a photo of these slides?
Yes. So, while I was a UTD student, I had a summer internship where MoneyGram for software development implementation, which turned into a co-op with a summer and fall internship, which then turned into a full-time role as well, where I worked as a software developer for about a year, exactly a year actually, full-time. It's a big journey for me in terms of applying what I learned from school to the real life and getting a shock of, like, okay, this is not what I have learned in university. Yes, I knew the programming and yes, I knew the basics of data structures, algorithm, everything, right? But then really applying into the skill that they were working on, that was a big learning journey. But I think the biggest key takeaway is to make sure that you were learning. Use the microphones and that would be.
Is it okay?
Good.
Or no?
Okay, so couple of things. This yeah, yes. Okay. There is a difference between what you study here in university versus what happens in industry. I think the biggest takeaway is the scale, right? And learning to adapt to that scale. What that really means is that you know your data structures, you know your algorithms, you know your programming languages or the other building blocks to it in theory, or you have done some projects during your coursework or your independent projects in the internships, right? Now when you are looking into the industry, you're really launching something which is production, which is used by global audience. And that understanding the big picture is, it takes time. It doesn't come overnight, but it takes time, right? And so for me, really taking the ownership, and you're gonna hear this throughout my journey, is being curious about learning. Because there have been a lot of times where I had no clue about what I'm doing. I had no clue about what they were asking me to do. But just because I was curious to learn and just because I was ready to do whatever it took me to reach that level, consistency and persistence, that is how I was able to achieve that, right? And so, just understanding that ownership and curiosity is the key, right? I share one example on understanding that scale of the business, right? Um, During my internship days, of course, you want to make that impression. Of course, you want to make that lasting impact, right? I go to the team, and they're working on a very traditional on-premise C#.NET development environment. And I get used to what they are doing. I'm now at a stage where I can deliver things. And then my question is, what is next, right? And so my next question is, I've learned about cloud during one of my courses. Why are they not using it here, right? And so I go into my mentor slash supervisor at the time, and I just, without any data, no research, nothing, I just go and propose this big idea on why are we not using AWS or Azure into this, right? And just mark my words, I did not know AWS or Azure at that level at the time, right? This is just because I know that for the scalable solutions, this is something that we can use. And so what happened there was it was immediately shut down. No surprises there, right? Because I don't have data, I don't have enough research now. And so that was initially shut down, which was at the time, it was a discouragement, right? That they did not accept my ideas. I think this would have been the perfect solution to what they're trying to do, right? And this is natural to fail. Now that I look back at it, I think it wasn't wrong of me to propose that bold idea to them. It was wrong of me that I did not have the data to back up my decision, right? And this has been the key throughout my journey in AWS as well, that don't be afraid to propose those bold ideas or think out of the box and just, nobody has think about it. And I'm just gonna, enter the room and propose something new. I've done that later on and it has been accepted because the next time I had the data and the necessary research done. Right. So that was my biggest key takeaway from that internship. And how did I know about that? That this is what should happen, which is that
don't settle in for if your inner curiosity is not fulfilled. What that really means is that during that internship, I realized that, okay, I've learned what you're trying to do. I think this is an easy task for me to do. I don't think I'm fully utilized for my potential here, right? And so what I did there is I asked them, can I shadow your solutions architect who make these decisions on how your architecture should look like, whether we should use cloud or not, because that was one of the things that was told to me that ISAs has decided that this is not the right step for us. So I was like, can I shadow your essays to learn from you, right? And that was my curiosity. And later on, that helped me realize why that decision was made, whether it was the cost or the security of the data at the time, and what were the available services slash features at the time for clinical services, right? And so that is what really helped me understand on why certain decisions are taken in certain ways. So that is another key takeaway, that if you feel like you're bored or your potential is not fully used, go ask for more. I'm pretty sure there will be people who can use your help. This is another building block on my journey to leadership as well. This is how I became a leader, because I asked for more work. Technically, just as simple as, hey, I have some, like I want to learn about this. Can I help you out with the task that you are doing? As simple as that, right? And that helped me learn from what they were doing. So that inner curiosity was really helpful for me to get to that full-time job. And then later on, we did end up using the cloud, and then, I was part of that migration project as well as a software developer. But that shadowing the essay or really getting to work with them really helped us understand the why certain business decisions were taken. So that is that. And then the key takeaway again is handle that disagreement with respect. This takes a lot of practice, especially for your initial rejection slash disagreements. It's heartbreaking, right? You feel like end of the world, something wrong has happened. How can they not like my idea, right? But not taking it personally and handling it with the right respect is the key. That is what that whole incident taught me on how do you. It really matters on how do you present certain ideas, when you present it, and with what data you present it. Okay. We will fast forward. 1 year later, when I ended up joining AWS, curiosity was another big reason for the switch as well, because after a point I was like, I'm not challenged enough. I need more. And I've always had that cloud in my mind from the day I had post. So AWS again was not at the scale at it is today. It was, like not everybody knew about it. It wasn't a big fuss. And so when I joined so my position is technically was cloud associate big data engineer, right? So that associate position, very ground level position. First day I joined the new hire training, I think every single thing they talked about in that training was brand new information to me, because again, I was not, I would say I was not very focused on something that was out of coursework. Remember, there was a lesson learned during the UT Dallas, right? So I was not very focused on what was not within the scope of my course at the time. So yes, I learned about cloud computing or big data theoretically. I had not explored what AWS is. But again, just making sure, okay, I have this opportunity, I'm gonna make it work, I'm gonna learn the heck out of AWS and make sure that I succeed in this role, because now I have this, right? And that is exactly what happened. I think we had something called Tiger Team competition, very silly competition on certain backlog of work.
whoever cleans it up, whoever handles most amount of cases, which one month in Amazon technically during my onboarding, our onboarding is usually like 90 days onboarding for that team. So I'm still in that onboarding period, but I still won that competition just because I just wanted to know about what the team is doing and just wanted to learn about it. So that learning, that curiosity again played in my favor, and that helped me. That competition actually helped me gain a lot of confidence that okay, I knew nothing about this, but I'm reaching this, which means that I can move forward and I can do other things as well. So that was another thing, right? And then from there, there are again not a brag list. It is there because I want to highlight that not everything is directly related to a promotion or something because something is in it for me, right? And so I became interviewer, a mentor, started training other people, started creating the training content, which was, viewed and, used by the global engineers in AWS, which then eventually got me into that subject matter expert as well. And we're talking about total of 3 years here, where I moved in that 3 years, I moved from associate to an engineer to a senior engineer role, which is about 3 promotions in 3 years. Again, not because I was doing the things that required me to be promoted, but because I was focusing on a growth versus just the outcome of it. There have been a lot of other things that I did, which was not related to what my manager was asking me to do or my promotion was up for it. It was mainly because I just wanted to learn and grow from. So that was just my journey during the early career days. From there, again, curiosity is the key to success. We've gone over that, so not going to deep into it. The second part is very crucial. On you own your career. We say at Amazon, but at any place you go and not your manager or not your peer or not your team or anybody else. What that really means is that there are a couple of things for owning that career, right? One is your own growth on fulfilling your inner curiosity. But then two is, of course, everybody has milestones to move professionally onto. Okay, this is my next level. I want to go into that associate to engineer role. Understanding the role guideline of the next role that you want to go in and working backwards towards it, right? What does it require for me to be at that next level and then actually working towards that goal? That is what helps you go there. The other part of the thing, which I see a lot of my engineers right now struggling, especially the people who are like, new hires or started fresh from university, they don't track their work, right? I am 8 years into Amazon now. Even today, I do track my work on every single contribution that I'm making. This is not a timesheet. This is not where you are spending your time so you can show your manager. This is for you to understand what type of work you are doing and how does it align with your personal career goals, right? Maybe do you have gaps, or are you really ready for that next level, or are you really working towards totally different and you have a lot of gap towards what you want, right? So tracking your work, and that tracker definitely, it's just simple words, it just looks like just that format you would have heard about, right? Situation, task, action, and the results. Just maintaining a track record of this was the situation, this is what I did, and this was the end result of it. Again, this helps with right now as well with the resumes and what you're doing, and during the interview process as well, because over the time, as you keep doing these things, you're gonna forget about it, right? If you go for a promotion 3 years from now, you're not gonna remember what you did 3 years ago, right? So that is why that tracker is important, and the tracker is not just a bullet list, right? Let's make sure that we document, we add all the reference links and everything that needs to be there or related to that project. So that is what owning your career really means. Owning your career again also means to understand what is the current role that you're in? What does it require you to do? First, be successful at that role, and then you look at what is my next goal and then work backwards, right? Before meeting the role expectation for the current role, you're not going to be able to go to the next one. It's just given, but just understanding that on just making sure you understand the role expectations. That is what makes a lot of difference. And if you are wondering what does the role guideline look like or how do I know about it? Simple question to whoever your future manager is, just asking them about, hey, what is the expectations from me in this role? What is the role guideline saying? Am I on the right track? Am I doing the right things? Or am I missing anything? A lot of the times we just ask, okay, am I doing the right thing? And the answer is yes. But if you ask specifically, can you let me know about my gaps? That's when the conversation starts happening. Okay, you could do this and you could do that.
We're still asking what you're saying. Could you please let me know about your gaps? But who's the best person you're saying to have that conversation with?
So that would be a couple people. One would be your, if you have a mentor slash peer buddy within the right ones, right? And so that is where I was at. I always wanted to be a leader. I always wanted to be a manager, people leader, right? But at that point, I was like, okay, this is the time. How do I know if this is the right career move for me, right? And that is where that conversation with my manager started on, this is my goal. And that is why I have been doing certain things like mentoring, trainings, or interviewing. So far, I love it, but I don't really know what you as an operations manager do at your work. And it is the right choice for me or not, right? So for me to understand that role, would it be possible for me to shadow you for some days? At the time, the answer was no. And the reason for that was really because there is a lot of personal people related things that the operations leader work on, and we cannot really give you a full view into that, right? And so my next question to them was, okay, I understand I cannot shadow you. Is there a part of your job that you can just assign to me and I can lend a hand so that it can reduce your workload and it can help me learn from that? Okay, so good. All right. So that was my next question, right? It's okay. Don't let me shadow you. Can I just, do a part of your work that is not confidential, that is something that is within my limits? Can I help you out with that? And that was an immediate yes, because who doesn't want help, right? So that was an immediate yes. Yes, I would love help with this reports. I'll give you the data. You help me do X, Y, and Z, or you help me analyze, A, B, and C. And that was my beginning of it, right? Just testing the waters into, do I really like the operations leader part or not? Is it really in, my skill set, or, is it something just completely out of my comfort zone, right? And so that was a starting point. Another thing that I did was just, again, networking wasn't a strong suite, but by that time I had gained into that. So then I reached out to just random managers, random operations leaders, reached out to maybe 15, 5 of them replied, right? Hey, can I just get to know about a day in a life of operations manager? This was not a thing back then. Now we have that. I was one of the creators of that program, on a day in a life of whatever, the engineer, manager, whatever, right? But that is what I did, right? Just literally reaching out to people. Hey, this is my next
career aspiration. Would you mind sharing a 30 minute of your day with me? Just sharing your journey and just hearing from me. So that was another thing for me. Mentoring, interviewing, I was always doing with leadership in mind. So that was good. And then the helping the manager out. Another thing also is experiencing that leadership at a smaller scale, which means that I took on a project. Some of the things that I struggled with during my early days at AWS was the onboarding. Being the new person that I was, there were a lot of things during the onboarding phase which I felt that could have been better. And so I was wondering on what could be that next step in the leadership. And that is the project that clicked on why don't I just, create a problem statement based on what I complain the most, and then I create a solution of it. And that's where I led the global onboarding project for my domain. And that was the project that gave me an exposure to leading something at a smaller scale, but getting that, again, test of the water. So there was another thing, and that all of that confirmed that, yes, this is the role that I want to go into. This is all of it. I'm talking about maybe like a 6 months of, gradually building into that. And then, getting the interview and then passing that and going into the leadership. So that was my, decision point on whether I want to be a cloud engineer, continue being that, or I want to go towards that people leader dream that I always had. So that was something. And then growing into that leadership after I became manager, again, a lot of things. As an individual, you are used to doing things on your own. So that is the biggest difference when you become a manager. Immediate switch, and now you have to get that same work done by other people, right? And so it takes a lot of time and practice to just hold yourself back and not do it yourself and let your people do it for you, right? Because then if you jump in too quickly, you are hindering into their growth as well, right? So it takes a lot of practice, which it did, because I had a lot of strong technical background. Every time my engineer would face an issue, I would be like, let me just help you out, right? I will solve that for you. Maybe a couple months later, I realized I'm just hurting them by giving too much help. And that's where I stepped back and I was like, okay, I'm going to guide you to where you need to go and look for this information, but I'm not going to do it for you, right? So that is another thing. When I became manager, one of the things that I did was I built a machine learning and AI domain within our AWS support engineering. What that means is earlier, big data used to be just one big profile. Everybody in big data would work on Hadoop, MapReduce, ETL services, machine learning, AI, everything. The immediate challenge I faced was it's very, very hard to get people who have all of those skill sets. So we were struggling with hiring a lot. And so we started dividing, okay, what do we go with just specific specialty domains, right? That's where machine learning and AI was, taken by me. I just grew that team from, I think I was 2 engineers. And then by the time I left that team, it was 50, 60 engineers. So we grew that team to that level because of the customer demands and, like whatever growth areas that had. I was also in Amazon, we have something called support experience owner. In a very simple term, it is an intermediate person between an end customer and the developers of the service, who enables the service team with the right level of feedback and the necessary information, and then who enables the customer to make sure that their feedback is heard, they are supported the right way, and then they are receiving the service that they were promised for. So it's just like a support experience owner so I was a support experience owner for SageMaker Forecast. Those are AI/ML services. MWA is our ETL service. It is managed version of Apache Airflow for anybody is aware. Again, this was a building block for my leadership journey because that helped me stay intact with the technology while I focused on the strategic decisions for the business for those services. So there was a sort of like a link between my days as an engineer versus days as a leader. Barrager, culture champion, I've already talked about it. And then from there, remember that global onboarding project. Now that became, just
So what do you mean by building machine learning?
correct. So that's what I meant by we had a big data as a one big domain slash profile. When I became leader, we had those hiring challenges, and that's where we started the machine learning and AI domain where, okay, this is the domain where our engineers are just going to focus on machine learning and AI services, and they are not going to worry about Hadoop or ETL services or other skill set, just so that we can hire that focused talent within AI. Cool. All right. And yeah, so what I was saying by global strategic leader for large scale initiative is where those onboarding projects now became the actual, business level initiatives where, okay, we need to solve this business problem and we need to scale it at a global level. That is where that leadership journey took me to, even right now, without revealing too much about it, right? Like those decisions involve AWS is launching a totally new offering or a product. How do we ensure that all of our global teams are ready with whatever they need to be ready? How do we ensure the onboarding, the hiring, everything that it needs is done properly? So managing at that level is where we get involved today. So that is where I am today. Couple things, actually a lot of things. So I've been into the operations leader role for 5 years now. So my 8 years of a journey in AWS is 3 + 5, 3 years as an engineer, and then a 5 years as a leader, right? Lot of learnings in that 5 years. The very first one is the confidence takes time, right? And the way to build it is really knowing your true value. Now, your next question is, how do I even know that, right? What do I do that? or where do I even find that, right? So just a quick backstory, right? You're always going to work with people who have more experience, who are smarter than you, who have done this million times before. And that shakes up your confidence a little bit, right? When I became a leader, I was working with some of the people who had 20+ years of leadership experience in industry, even more, or some were specifically the subject matter experts into certain areas which were new to me. So that does shake up your confidence a little bit when you are in a meeting full of such people. You second guess yourself on to, should I unmute myself and speak up, or have they already considered this and I should just keep my mouth shut, right? The biggest thing that helped me, and this is something that I remind today as well, is you're at that table with all of those people because you bring value to that table. So that is the first fact that you have to accept, that yes, I don't have an industry leadership experience, but I am at that table because I bring something to my table, to that table, right? So that is one thing. The other thing is, how do you know your true value, right? And that is where people around you can help you, but that is totally up to you on looking inside and just looking into the ways that I found it essentially is, you know, during those meetings, right, you don't have to immediately speak up, just observe on what the discussion is. Think about what you would do differently in that situation. There is not a single answer to that, and sometimes there is just no answer to it, right? But asking yourself on what you would do differently, regardless of whether you're speaking up or not, how would you handle that situation differently? And then dissecting that thought, like what we call in Amazon as 5 whys. Why would you do that? This is why. Okay, why would you do that? Right? Asking yourself 5 whys, that will really help you understand on what you bring to the table. This is the aspect that they have never thought about, but you are able to bring that to the table. So next time when you're with them, to me, for specifically for me, I think that bringing to the table value was my experience as an engineer, the 3 years of experience that I had. So whatever strategic solutions that we were talking about, that involved engineers. So adding my perspective as an engineer or what I would have appreciated as an engineer, that really started clicking with people, right? Because yes, they had industry experience, but they did not really understand the workflows that our engineers work on or the day to day that our engineers go through. I had that background. I had lived that life for 3 years. And that's where it started clicking that this is the connection that brings me to this table, right? My leader at the time was actually a contributor to that realization as well, that, like, what do you think? Like, he would just provoke that question to me on what do you think an engineer would, bring, like really appreciate in this matter. And that is where. So just again, asking yourself on how would you do that differently, just couple times looking inside you and just figuring that out, that will really help you unleash your full potential. And that will also help you build your confidence, because no matter what role you are in, this is something that applies to every role. On whether you are a developer, you're always going to have senior developers or senior SDMs in your teams, right? How do you not let their experience, their skill set affect your confidence, right? As because you were hired because you bring something to you have that potential to grow into that team, you have something that you can deliver. So just understanding that will really help you build that confidence, right? The third one, consistency and persistence over perfection. This is very important because in Amazon, we have something like a concept of 70% information. What that really means is, simple terms, if you have a 70% of the information available, you're good to make a decision. You don't actually have to wait for 100% of the information. Now, that is the same thing. When you wait for 100%, you're waiting for the perfection, right? If you show up consistently and if you're persistent about what you want to achieve, that brings you closer to your goals versus you trying to do just one thing perfectly and, giving up just because it didn't go well, right? So that is another thing. There will be a lot of disagreements, lot of rejections. So get ready for that. And, just handling with grace and making sure that you learn the whys behind it, right? Really making sure that, understanding that disagreement to like why the other person is disagreeing is important. And learning never ends. I've been there 8 years. I'm still attending trainings. I'm still curious. Some just randomly going into things just because, and, making sure that I'm fulfilling that inner curiosity that never ends. The other point I want to put in is success looks different for everyone. Now, what that means is that for some people, it is getting to a certain level at that corporate ladder. For some people, it means growth. It also means the timeline also, right? Some people are like, oh, within 5 years, I got this many promotions, versus that other people may have the same amount of achievements within more years, right? And that may look different. One experience that I can share is, and this is, I see a lot of women in here. I think it applies to men as well, but just specifically women, right? As when I had my daughter, of course, I had a break. I had maternity leave, right? I go back, and I had a peer who had a very, very similar journey. The timeline, the roles, everything, and that peer was promoted, right? And ouch, right? Like it's hard not to compare on, okay, I'm nowhere close to that next level, but that person is. And you have to understand on why you took certain breaks, what is it that, again, that is the time my family needed me, and that is what I did, right? So just that success timeline or the success level looks different for everybody. So do not let anybody else's journey affect your confidence or your abilities to be successful, right? Because this is very important, because, and this is a lesson learned as a mother, right? Is do not let others define your potential, or do not let others define your worth. And it is very cliche to say that, but when it comes to real life, it's hard to follow that, right? As a mother, one thing that I learned, people have opinions, right? People have very strong opinions about your parenting styles, about you, how you're, raising your people, right? And what I realized is no matter what anybody in the world says, they cannot define how much I love my daughter. And I went back to the work next day and I'm like, why am I letting others define my worth at work then? Right? If I cannot let anybody decide what my daughter means to me, that means that I am the owner of my career as well, right? So that is very important to keep in mind as well, because I've had certain moments on this as well where second guessing, doubting yourself, letting your confidence affected. I feel it's very natural, right? I don't see that as a bad thing, but just learning from it, and then just going and not let that repeat is the key. So, yeah. Cool. All right. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. The biggest takeaway is there is no shortcut. So if you if you were here to know about, okay, how do I just go and get a job, or be a successful professional, I'm sorry to say, but there are no shortcuts. There are no magic sauce. It just requires the consistency and persistence over your goals. Consistently showing up, that is another thing that the motherhood taught me. No matter how sick you are, how bad in a mood you are, you always show up, right? So let's do the same thing for our the studies, the professional life, whatever it may be, but that consistency is the key. And then continuous learning, I think, to me, I think if I take one thing that has helped me throughout all of this is the continuous learning, just being curious, and the effort versus outcome. Not always, what is my end goal, or what is the next level, or the promotion I'm getting out of this, but just the effort you're getting, the learnings you are getting from there. And yes, failure is a part of journey, right? I shared few of mine. There have been few rejections, few disagreements, but as long as you are learning from those, it is a part of the journey. And then understanding what you bring to the table. Yeah, cool. That is all I had. I will pause here for any question and answer. I know that is where people benefit the most from. So I'll pause here, stop talking. What questions do you have for me? Yes.
So what advice do you have regarding how to get ready?
Yeah, very good question. Knowing that what I know now and involved into all of this hiring processes, again, no magic sauce that you're not aware of, but the couple proven things that always work is getting that hands-on experience early on so that you don't have that culture shock when you join the industry. What that really means is, one is the industry certification, definitely a great way to gain that depth and breadth that you need to understand at a bigger scale. But then really applying that next step is what people miss out on. Yes, I have AWS certification. What did you do with it? That is my next question. That's where people shut down, right? So taking that learnings and doing certain individual projects. We have a lot of online resources right now. Take AWS Labs, for example. We have a lot of things where you can just take a problem statement and practice what you have learned during those certifications. So that gaining that hands-on experience is definitely a thing to do. Any other questions? Yes?
You ever dealt with it?
Yes.
Okay, so like, how do you deal with it?
Yes, and it's hard to,
What is the question? I recall it partially, but I'm not sure whether the rest of them.
the question was, have you ever dealt with an imposter syndrome? And my answer to that is not at a very like severe, like with big skill level. But it is very natural to sometimes lose yourself when you're trying to prove yourself. This is specifically true when you are in your early career days. The days when I said, I was saying yes to everything. I was saying, you know, just because my manager says I will do it. The part of the reason there was I was watching the people around me and feeling like, okay, this person is doing like 500 things. I think this is what it means to be successful and I need to be there. So again, I think that comparison and trying to be like others is very natural during the early days. But then again, taking a step back to understand on what is the role expectation and what is within your personal growth that you want to achieve. For me, it was a leadership, right? And so I really plugged myself out of some of the projects which were not related to that goal. And I put effort into mentoring, interviewing, and the other projects where I can experience leadership. So I think not at a very full-fledged level, but I think yes, it is very common to try to be like other person just because you see they are being recognized and they are being promoted and things like that. So yeah. Yes.
How do you deal with it?
Very good question. I think a lot of it goes back to understanding your capacity, right? And at one point, I was burning myself out by saying yes to all those things. The way I realized it is when I looked back on the quality of the deliverables that I was giving out, right? And so setting that expectation with your manager that this is where I am, this is what I'm feeling, that really helped me, right? And sometimes, sometimes it's not always like you tell your manager I'm overworked, I'm overwhelmed, and things are magically gonna be okay, right? Sometimes it is just that the business needs you to do something, and then you have to contribute, right? And in that case, you just have to see the light at the end of the tunnel that okay, this is the short-term situation. And I've been very clear to my engineers as a leader these days where I understand I'm asking you to do a lot here, but this is a short-term thing, right? And 1 week from now, we will make sure that you're not this overwhelmed just because we have some deadline or some things. But understanding what capacity you are able to deliver successfully is the key to that burnout, right? I always tell my engineers on, those venting sessions when you feel like those happening more than 2 times a week, that means you're overworked. Let's take a step back. Let's understand what you have on your plate. Let's prioritize, and then we will take some of the things off your plate. So that is, I think, something to look within to understand at what point do you start to just, let go of things, not look deep enough and things like that.
One small announcement, please go ahead and log in or click on this and enter your name. But Dr. Mehta will be running a raffle right now, so go ahead and yeah, we have 3 gifts.
Who's the prices? Now that's something exciting after a whole hour of listening to this lady, right? Yeah, any other questions? Anything that I can help? Yes.
It has been very helpful. Don't be.
I hope it was, yes. Yes. I see a question there, yes.
Excuse me, people, can you please
Can we be a little quiet so that the person who's asking the question can be a little more audible for others?
So you mentioned like the sheltered sort of key periods and thinking outside the scope of the My question is, how can you do that within a role like an internship, which you don't have that much flexibility to begin with? And how do you go about having conversations to increase the scope of your work?
Specifically for internship, right? I think there are multiple ways to still find out about those things, right? I've had interns reporting to me, and a lot of them come to me on, yes, I'm working on this internship, but I'm also invested into some other things. What would you recommend that I can take benefit of while I'm in this internship? To give you a little perspective, right? I've had engineers who come to me, I'm a big data manager, right? So they naturally come to me with that background. Some of them are naturally like, okay, I want to learn more about Kubernetes. It's because I've heard about that and I'm curious. What do you recommend, right? And then we go in and we give them the resources that are available only to AWS employees. And then, okay, you are here for 12 weeks. Go and take benefit of this. So there are a lot of internal resources that we can take benefit of. But again, if you're not aware of where to look for those, your manager is starting from showing them that you are curious, you want to take that next step. That usually triggers those conversations. So, okay, this is what we also have. Like for example, our internship. People go for AWS certification. There are a couple which are like milestones that we have to do. But then the other people will be like, oh, I want to take a step further. I want to get a machine learning specialist, right? And then we give them resources on, okay, this is where you can get this. Apart from the internship as well, like all of that outside as well, I think there are a lot of industries right now who offer a lot of hands-on resources, like I was talking about AWS labs, blogs, all of those. And this is just AWS, but I'm pretty sure all the other ones offer that too. So this is a simple, being curious and looking out for those things on what are online courses. It doesn't have to be paid courses, just any random courses, right? There are certain mentorship programs even, right? And I'm part of one within AWS, which was just non-AWS people showing that curiosity to learn from AWS, and they sign up for that mentorship program, and then 12-week program where we meet weekly and we go over, okay, what are your goals, what do you want to know from me, and then all those things. So again, just looking out for those opportunities, just actively searching for those. I think.
Yes, the question I was going to ask is, it sounds like you've done interviews, you've interviewed people, and you've also mentored people. What are some pitfalls that you saw for the interviewee and then as well for the intern?
Yeah. So that hands-on tip that I was giving you on not just stopping at getting the certification or getting an accreditation, but actually applying that in real life is one of the biggest differentiators that we see. When we interview people, they're able to talk about their academic project, which shows us, okay, they are able to understand that concept to do it. They join us as an intern, we assign them the task, and there is a gap, right? Because they don't understand the scale. And then there is a set of people who have done those individual projects. I'm just going to take a problem statement and I'm going to see if I can solve it with whatever I learned during the application, right? That experience when you solve those problems on your own, that really, provokes a lot of questions, and that helps you learn a lot, right? And so that is the biggest differentiation. I had an intern once who had, before he came to me, I think he had 5 AWS certifications, including some professional and specialty certifications. And then my first round, when I'm like, okay, that is really good, learn and be curious to have done this, right? And we talk about projects, and Julie's had asked him, like, okay,